Okay, another day, another attempt at making a video that's not just completely crazy. Let's see, over the last few videos, we've been comparing, contrasting sort of different stages of what some philosophers have thought. We started with sort of the very base of some philosophical theories. We started with sort of, I guess you might say, the middle, the theory itself. And in this video, we're going to talk about your next two readings, and really we're going to concentrate sort of on the end game, on the application of the theories. If applied properly, what happens with these theories? So the next two articles are distributive justice and the entitlement theory. I think you'll notice that these are the articles where you sort of shift the trend of hard to read to much, much, much easier to read, so you'll like that. Let's talk about what these two theories say. They're basically contrasting ideas of what your authors would call a just society. What actions should we take in order to have a just society, or in a just society, how are things structured? Now, these are opposite ends of the spectrum, which I'm sure you've kind of noticed in some of the past videos. I like to take opposites and kind of see what side you fall down on or make you think, what they have in common. Let's talk about, I'm not sure which one you read first. Let's talk about distributive justice. Under the distributive justice theory, the author says that in a just society, or a good society, you have an even distribution of goods and services. So, we would take actions as individuals to ensure that goods and services are as evenly distributed as possible. Now let me talk about entitlement, and then we'll kind of come back and expand on these. Now, in the entitlement theory, or under the entitlement theory, that author says that in a just society, you are entitled to whatever you can bargain for. As long as you don't intentionally harm another human being, you're entitled to whatever you can bargain for. So under that theory, obviously there can be a very uneven distribution of goods and services because we may have exchanges that are not equal, not equitable. Now let's go back for a second to distributive justice. Distributive justice, we would take actions in our society to ensure that goods and services are evenly distributed. Now, result of that, or hopeful result of that, it will reduce conflict. We all basically have the same thing. If we're a really poor country, then we're all really poor. If we're a really rich country, then we're all really rich. So we basically all have the same thing. So that takes away the desire to have what somebody else has, because we basically all have the same level of living, same standard of living. Some people would say that it's very much like a communist society, at least the ideal of a communist society, because the ideal of a communist society is that there is a strong central government and the entire population works and contributes to the central government. That central government then takes the goods and services and redistributes them as evenly as possible. Now that's the ideal. We know that it never really works like the ideal in reality, because what happens if I'm the central government and you all work and give me everything? What do? Well, usually I keep it. And so you have a very small group of very rich, and the rest of the population is very poor. So the ideal doesn't seem to work out very much, and that is probably what most detractors are going to say is the biggest downfall of this distributive justice theory. It just doesn't work. However, could it work? You see it work sometimes in very small groups. Take, for example, like an Amish community. There's a very communal sense. We all work together. We all help each other out. We all have our jobs, but we all contribute to the community. And basically, we all have a very standard, similar standard of living. And very small groups, that seems to work. There's less crime, there's less conflict, we all have a common goal. It doesn't really remove motivation for you to be productive, because everybody has to do their part for your community to be successful, or to thrive. So everybody is motivated to do their part, because I know that, if I'm the doctor, I need to take care of everybody, or there is no one else to do it. I know if I'm the garbage man, really, I'm just as essential to the functioning of my community, because if nobody takes the garbage out, we're going to have some problems. So that's another one of the goals of the distributive justice, is to basically make everyone feel that they are of equal importance. It doesn't matter if I'm a doctor or I'm a garbage man. My role in our society is essential, and if I don't do my role, it creates problems throughout society. So we're all, uh, equal in value. Now, again, you see that work in very small communities that have a common goal, but you don't seem to see it work as the community grows, because we don't all then have a common goal. We don't all then value each other, because we don't all know each other. The bigger population you get, the more sort of separation you have between people, and it makes it harder for that common goal to really win out and have a successful sort of distributive justice system. But ideally, could it work? Could it be great? I think it could be. What do you think? Now, contrast the entitlement theory. Entitlement theory says you're entitled to whatever you get. Kind of, since I'm putting this in terms of sort of modern day terms, that's sort of like capitalist system. A pure capitalist system now, not what we have these days, but a true capitalist system where there is no interference. The government doesn't step in and interfere with anything unless there is some kind of coercion or force involved in a transaction. That's the only time that there's any interference. So if we enter into a transaction, even though it may be inequitable to others, this entitlement guy says, well, let's say that I have a car and you have a bike. And I say, hey, I'll trade you my car for your bike. Now, to an outsider, that doesn't look very equal. It looks like, wow, you're getting a really good deal. You must have somehow cheated me or something. I'm getting a really bad deal. I got a bike, you got a car. That doesn't seem equitable. But your author says this. He says, if I am willing to give up a car in exchange for a bike, then to me, the bike has as much value or more value than the car. So he says, if I'm willing to give that up, nobody's cheated me. You're not holding a gun to my head or anything. If I'm willing to willingly make that transaction, then there must be something of greater value to me in what I'm getting than what I'm giving up, or at least equal value. So there's nothing wrong with it. So nobody should step in and interfere with that. Applied to, now I said this is like a true capitalist, not like we have today. Applied to a more modern world, he would say, government shouldn't be interfering in so many things. We should just transact with one another, and as long as I said, nobody hurts anyone and nobody coerces anyone. And coercion, you guys, doesn't mean like I have the upper hand. If I have fairly honestly gotten the upper hand, I deserve what I get from that upper hand. Now, what do I mean by that? Microsoft. If Bill Gates is smart enough to put a product out there that everybody likes, and then when he puts the next version of the product out there, it won't interact with anything but his product. And the next one doesn't interact with anything. So you kind of get suckered in. You buy his product and you really like it. Everybody likes it, so everybody's using it. So then the new version comes out and you're like, well, I don't really like that new version, but nothing else will work unless I have that version. And everybody else is using this system, so I have to use this system. He kind of has an upper hand because he's put us in a position where we want what he has. Entitlement theory would say, hey, you willingly bought that first system. You willingly buy the second system. You're buying it for your own convenience. You don't have to. Nobody held a gun to your head. You could live a very inconvenient life. So if you choose to do that, then power to him. The government shouldn't step in and break his company up because he has too much power, because he has honestly come by that power. We have given him that power. The entitlement guy says if you get tired enough of him having all this power, you'll quit buying his system. Will it be inconvenient? Sure. Will it maybe cause me some trouble? Sure. But if I willingly keep purchasing his product, then he deserves whatever power, whatever corner of the market, whatever what we would call monopoly that he has. As long as he's honestly come by it, he deserves it because we have given it to him. And vice versa, we deserve what we've gotten. Okay? So entitlement theory would say you're entitled to whatever you can get through honest means, as long as you're not intentionally harming someone else, coercing someone else. Now, that leads to some bad situations. Maybe let's all admit it. We all want to say, oh, yeah, capitalist, I'm entitled to whatever I want. But, oh, yeah, I want the government to step in and break up these companies. They have too much power. Now I have to pay too high of a phone bill or too much money for the computer or whatever it is. Entitlement theory says, nope, 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 nope. You've put yourself in that position. You have to live with the consequences. If you don't like it, stop. You know, if you don't like that AT&T garners the world's market in cell phones and you don't want to pay their outrageous prices anymore, quit using a cell phone. Is that inconvenient? Yes. Do you like it? No. But quit. And he says, if you don't want to quit, if you don't want to suffer the consequences of the power you've given them, then you just have to keep suffering the consequences. Again, right, wrong, do we like it, do we not? Do you maybe want to meld the two theories together? You know, what do you think about these two theories? Just society. Do you think a just society, a good society, would be your distributive justice? Everybody's equal, everybody has a common concern, everybody helps each other. Do you think that's a good, just society? And we as individuals take actions to attain that kind of a society. Or do you like the entitlement theory? You know, basically everybody's just on their own. As long as you don't hold a gun to somebody's head, you're basically on your own and you can get whatever you can get as long as you don't do it through force or intentional harm. Do you like that theory? Or, like I said, do you want to kind of meld the two? You want to come up with a completely different theory. Can't wait to hear that. Somebody's going to blog on some completely different system, right? So a little bit to start you, get you thinking about these next two readings, and see you next time. If I can turn off the camera, I'll see you next time.